of beloved Bhagwan, dearest Swami, respected elders, dear brothers and sisters. It is always a pleasure and honor to think about Swami, speak about Swami. I always begin my talks with this statement, but today I would like to state it more emphatically because just before starting the satsang, I was watching a satsang in which a beautiful insight was shared. I would like to begin with sharing that insight. There is a very popular bhajan, Bhakta Vatsala Tero Naam. And sometimes that bhajan begins with an alap. Please forgive my voice, but I really feel like singing it. It goes as हर पल हर क्षण भूल करे हम पग पग ठोकर खाए एक पग आगे दो पग पीछे साई तुम तक कैसे आए. uh, this line, no, this poem, हर पल हर क्षण भूल करे हम. Every moment, every second, I'm making mistakes. Pag pag ठोकर खाए. At every step that I take, I'm meeting obstacles and I'm tripping over. I'm falling over. एक पग आगे दो पग पीछे. For every step that I take towards you, Swami, I'm taking two steps backwards away from you. तुम तक कैसे आए? How can I reach you? This is the meaning that comes, and anywhere where I've searched on the internet, this is the meaning that has been put also. Makes sense also. And every time this alap is sung, I close my eyes and I used to shed tears thinking, yes, Swami, how will I ever reach you? I can never reach you because if I take one step towards you and I'm taking two steps away from you, how will I reach you? Till today, something so beautiful happened. Like even as I'm thinking of it, I'm my eyes are welling up because it was such a paradigm shifting thought. It was shared by another of our senior brothers, brother Bal Ramachandran. He had shared it, and brother Anand, who is his classmate, shared it in a satsang, and I heard it, and it was so overwhelming. It changes the whole meaning because that is the beauty of the Hindi language. Tum tak kaise aaye. On one hand, it means how can I ever reach you? How can we ever reach you? Tum tak kaise aaye also means how did we ever reach you? Exclamation mark. How can I ever reach you? Question mark can also mean how did I ever reach you? Exclamation mark. It filled me with, even as I say this, I'm getting goosebumps because it changes the entire meaning now. पग पग ठोकर खाए एक पग आगे दो पग पीछे साई तुम तक कैसे आए करुणा सागर परम दयालु साई. It's an exclamation mark as to Swami making mistakes all my life, taking one step towards you, two steps away from you. How did I reach you, Swami? How did we reach you? We reached you because your Karuna Sagar, Parama Kripalu. It is surely your love and grace that I have reached you. We have reached you. And when I heard this interpretation, this perspective. This is the right perspective. Bhagata Vatsala Tero Naam. That's how the bhajan begins. Because Bhagata Vatsalya is the love that a mother has towards the child. And that 1,000,000,000 mothers love we have been fortunate to get. And that is why we have been able to reach Swami. Today I realized that this alap is not about me at all. It's not about how faulty I am, how many mistakes I make, how difficult, how will I never be able to reach. It's not a poem of lament. Swami, how will I reach you, Swami? Because I'm so imperfect. It's actually an exaltation saying, oh, Swami, you are filled with so much karuna, with so much love that despite all of these lacunae in me, I have reached you. How did I reach you, Swami? How did I reach you with all these negatives? That is your love, Swami. That is your karuna. That is your compassion. Ahetuka daya sindhu dese. Meaning, Swami is an ocean of causeless compassion, reasonless compassion. No reason for his love, no season for his love. And it is because of that we have reached him. I was bubbling with so much of energy to share this. I wanted to actually begin by thanking Brother Vinod Karthik for this beautiful opportunity. It's not just this satsang for 1 hour, it's also what preceded it. Going back, thinking about Swami, shedding tears for Swami. What else in life is worth? Nothing else in life matters. Nothing else matters. I was just thinking as I was preparing for this satsang, what will each and every one of us do if we were to die tomorrow? I'm not being fatalistic here. I'm being probabilistically realistic because yes, there is a chance that any of us may be gone tomorrow. Nobody can say with surety that we'll be alive tomorrow. Now, what happens in our life is usually we keep doing things that we feel are important for us. Anything and everything we do it because we consider that it is important. And what are the things that are important varies in the different stages of our life. Health, wealth, career, relationships, God, different things are important. We have a list of 100 important things in life. And how do we do them? When I was thinking about how do we accomplish important things, we do them based on our urgency. As a school going child, possibly my exams are most important. So that's most urgent, not most important. That's most urgent. So therefore I focus on that. Health is also important, but probably as teenagers and youngsters, we don't think of health. We had done a survey when I was at Radio Sai, trying to find out what are the most important problems that plague people. And guess what? We targeted the youngsters under 35 years of age, and health as an issue or health as a topic came 5th ranked. Top ranks were relationship, career, money. These were the problems that they face. Then we were wondering, why isn't health not important for the youngsters? We then realized that at a young age, health comes automatically. So health is not a priority. It is important. We all want to be healthy, but no problem. Biology is such that irrespective of how I lead my life, I will normally be healthy, won't face much problems till I start getting older. Now that I'm reaching 40, now that there are 1 or 2 tires coming here, I start possibly thinking of health. So there are many things that are important, but based on their urgency, I solve them. Now health becomes important, so I start focusing on health. At some point in time, relationships were important, I focused on relationship. Family is important, focus on family. And that is where this concept of thinking about what shall I do if I am going to die tomorrow becomes so important, because death makes everything urgent. Everything becomes very urgent because I've got only 1 day to live now. And when everything is urgent, our priority lists get made automatically. I know there are so many things that are important, but what is most important? Thousands of years ago, there was a Maharaj who was told that you have only 7 days to live. And when he got to know that he had only 7 days, his priorities got reorganized. He gave up the kingdom, gave up family, gave up everything, went to Shuka Maharshi and said, "Oh Gurudev, oh Master, share with me the Leelas of my Lord." Maharaja Parikshit was lucky. He had 7 days at least. We don't have the luxury of those 7 days. We don't know. Again, as I said, I'm not being fatalistic. I'm just being probabilistically realistic. And I'm not being pessimistic. I'm just trying to prioritize. It's not that I'm going to die tomorrow, but that thought helps me remember that among the hundreds of important things that I have to do in life, what is the most important? And the theme of this session is lessons learned at the lotus feet. If I had to zero down on one most important lesson that I have learned at the lotus feet, is that it is most important to be at the lotus feet. That's it. Nothing else matters in life. Nothing else matters in life. Life is a journey, like a train journey or a plane journey, whatever we take it. Let's take it as a train journey. From the source to the destination. And yes, for the journey, possibly it matters whether I'm in a first class compartment, in an AC compartment, whether I've got a lower berth or a high berth, whether I get good food to eat, what books am I reading, what music I'm listening, what video I'm watching as I'm traveling. Yeah, all those possibly are things that we can choose and pick depending on our tastes. But what is most important, the reason behind us traveling in a train is so that we reach the destination. If the train doesn't go to the destination, it doesn't matter what we did on the train. The journey should lead us to the destination. Else, anything else done in the journey becomes useless. So this is the most important lesson that I have learned at the lotus feet. And through all the experiences, whether it was during my school days, my college days, or during my working days at Radio Sai, I think the same thing was drilled down again and again. That Swami is most important, nothing else is important. Neither your friends, nor your relationships, nor your money, nor your career, nor your ego. Nothing matters. And I just thought I'll share a couple of experiences of some terrible mistakes made and the love of Swami. The love of Swami. What shall I tell about the love of Swami? Oh my God. As I started off, it is only his love that has made us reach his feet. It is only his love that has made us accept him. It is only his love that has made us celebrate him. It is only his love that makes us sit and think about him. Because if he doesn't will it, if he doesn't share his love with us, if he doesn't pour his love on us, we can't even think of it. I don't know what we have done to deserve it, but having got it, let us cherish it and let us pray that Swami, never should a day pass without thinking about you. A day spent without thinking about Swami is a waste, total waste. So yes, let me travel back in time to 1998. I had joined as a student at the Sri Sathya Sai Higher Secondary School, and I had always wanted to be a student because of the physical proximity that I saw Swami students enjoying. When I had visited Prasanthi Nilayam, I would wait in the sun, get token lines, go inside and sit. And just before Swami would come, maybe about 15 minutes or 20 minutes before, there would be thundering hooves running into the darshan grounds. Students, a herd of white buffaloes storming into the darshan hall. and coming and occupying all the front seats. So unfair. So unfair. I used to think, who are these? Who are these boys and how come they're sitting in the front? I also want to be like that. Little did I know at that time that they were indeed Swami's Dunnapotas. Swami would call them Dunnapotas. Swami would call us Dunnapotas. Oh my God. See, that is the magic of love. If you will never celebrate and remember fondly with tears in your eyes that somebody called you a buffalo. But that is what Swami's love does, When Swami calls you Dunnapota, it is the greatest honor. It's greater than Padma Shri, Padma Vibhushan, greater than the Oscar awards. I don't know, whatever it's such a great honor. Swami, call me anything. Just call me. Call me a pakoda. You go and call a plus size person as pakoda or bonda. He or she will get angry, upset. But Swami calls them pakoda. They celebrate. They remember fondly. They say, I am Swami's pakoda. I am Swami's giraffe. I am Swami's Dunnapota. I am Swami's mental hospital. Swami used to call me mental hospital for some time. And you know what? I really think I must be mad because I used to celebrate. I used to feel happy. Wow, Swami called me mental hospital. Because that is the magic of love. So finally, got into Swami school. And then, once you get in, you want to get into form. Now, what is this concept of form? I think it's a term borrowed from cricket and other sports, wherein, if you're in form, you just can't do anything wrong. Everyone will notice you, observe you. And that's what happens with Swami as well. If you're a form boy, Swami speaks to you daily. You just cannot make any mistake. You come running into the mandir, and on the way, possibly you bump into an elderly person, and that elderly person is about to fall, somewhere regains balance because you're rushing to catch a seat in the front. If you're a normal student, if Swami sees that, he'll come and reprimand you. He'll say, hey, what is this running in leather? No manners, no common sense, buddhi ledu. What if that elderly person had fallen and broken his bones? Huh? But if you're a form boy, you do the same thing. Swami will come and tell, at an age where youngsters go behind movie stars, where they go behind films, where they go behind so many things, where can you find such youngsters running for God? What a noble quality. And he'll praise. So that's a form boy. And everybody would want to be a form boy. I too wanted to be a form boy. But never managed to get much conversation with Swami. As I said, the maximum I got was a mental hospital here or a Dunnapota there. That's all. And I would hold on to those few words, cherish them, and hope that someday Swami will talk to me, give me a chance, interact with me, get to know me personally. This is the beautiful thing, the Maya that the form brings. You want to be known to Swami, though Swami knows everything. When Swami asks, where do you come from? It's not because he's wanting to gather information. It's just a chance that he gives. And if he gives you the chance, you're in form. You love that. So I was wondering, what should I do? I want to do something to break into form. What to do? By that time, I had heard in a couple of discourses where Swami used to always say, na karmana na prajaya dhanena tyagena ike amrutatva manashu. Meaning, yeah, we all know it, not by action, nor by progeny, nor by your influence. It is only through sacrifice that you can achieve the immortality. For us, immortality is God, yes, achieve Swami. So sacrifice. And sacrifice means giving up something that is dear to you for something that is dearer to you. It's not like, you cannot say that I'm going to sacrifice eating bitter gourd. That's not a sacrifice. I mean, unless you love bitter gourd and you can't spend a week without eating it. If you're in love with bitter gourd and just like, I'm going to I heard some. Looks like some people were throwing vessels at each other. Okay, continuing. So sacrifice is something which we make when we give up something that is dear to us for the sake of something that is dearer to us. We cannot give up eating bitter gourd and say, I have sacrificed bitter gourd, unless, of course, I love bitter gourd. I'm reminded of an episode that was shared by one of our teachers as to how an elderly devotee went to Banaras, Kashi, and gave up eating one vegetable. I don't know, I think it's the ash gourd, something, not the bitter gourd. One vegetable which he anyway didn't like. He gave up eating that. As you know, because when you go there, you give up something, you sacrifice something for God, and he sacrificed this. When he came back, Swami had invited him for a dining session, had got this particular vegetable cooked, got it served to him, and wanted him to eat it. And now, because he has given it up, he didn't want to eat it because he has sacrificed it. But Swami kept on cajoling, please, you won't eat for my sake. It's very tasty. I ate it, so you won't eat it. After so much, when Swami is saying, okay, he took and put a morsel in his mouth. The moment he put that morsel in his mouth, Swami jumped up. Ah! You gave this up, right? You sacrificed this, right? For this sake only I made you eat it. And then Swami told him, when you sacrifice, you have to give up something that is dear to you. Not something that you already don't like. What is you giving this up? So, coming back to that, I felt that if I sacrifice something that is dear to me, then the probability of me getting into form will go up. There's a greater chance of me getting into form. And I thought that this year, when the winter vacation comes, so every year we have a winter vacation and a summer vacation. The winter vacation is about 10 to 15 days. Summer vacation is for 45 to 60 days. I thought I will give up. I won't go home. So very, very big deal for me because very, very attached to my parents and so love getting back home. My sun sign is Cancer, a Cancerian. For those of you interested in sun signs, is very, very attached to home. Home is very, very dear to me. And I felt, okay, Swami, for your sake, so that you speak to me once, I'm going to sacrifice my vacation. I'm not going to go home. I'm going to stay back. In the later years, when we reach college, a lot of students used to stay back, not going home for the vacation. But in school, very few would do that. For instance, in 1998, 30th October to, not 30th, 20th October to 31st October was the winter vacation. And I think about 30 of us out of 300 stayed back in the hostel. Rest everybody left for home. And even among those 30 who stayed back, about 10 to 15 of them stayed back because their home was in the northeast or near Nepal, very, very far. Doesn't make sense to travel that much and come back in 10 days. So only about 10 to 15 of us actually sacrificed our holidays and stayed back. And the first few days of the vacation were terrible. Nothing happened different. It's not as if Swami would come and speak to us specially. It's not even as if during darshan Swami would spend a little extra time. It was like any other day normally. Any other day Swami would come, take a round, call people for interview, finish interview, do bhajans and go. Same thing was happening even these days. There was nothing special as such happening. And then you come back to the hostel, there's hardly anybody in the hostel. You're almost alone in your room and you miss your home. You think, all this time you could have had fun. You could have watched a television. You could have played with your friends. And, I call my parents. I miss them. My mother speaks to me. She says, no, you've done a good thing. Stay on. So important it is. For all the parents out there, it is so important to support the children on this. I got a lot of support from my parents. Sometimes I would say that I want to come home. They would say, why? Be with Swami, be with Swami. And I used to think, what sort of parents you are? You don't want your child to come home or what? They had to bear all these things, all these taunts from me, all these words from me. But they were firm and fixed. They said, no, you stay with Swami. That is the best. If you want to come, definitely you're welcome. But we prefer that you stay with Swami. Stay with Swami as much as you can. Don't let go of his feet. It's so important because this is the most important thing in our life, and it doesn't come easy. We need all the motivation possible. That is the reason we do satsangs. That is the reason we do all this. That when it becomes so difficult to think of Swami because we are so filled in our own world with so many things, we have to keep reminding, dear brother, dear sister, most important is Swami. If you miss Swami, every whole life is gone. It's like focusing on the bhel puri and raw mango that I'm eating in the train, not bothered whether the train is moving or not. The train movement toward the destination is Swami. All the other things we do is nothing but raw mango and bhel puri. That's all. Bhel puri is, yeah, it's a chaat that we eat. So this motivation was there from the parents, even the teachers. Amazing. What an important role these teachers played in my life. They kept saying, see, every little thing, every small thing that you do for God will not go in vain. Possibly that's the only being for whom you do anything which doesn't go in vain. In the Gitanjali, Rabindranath Tagore, the 50th poem. And when I'm saying the 50th poem, please don't think that I'm well versed in the Gitanjali. I have read one poem from the Gitanjali, and that is the 50th poem. And I don't know that poem by heart, but the spirit of the poem is that I waited for the emperor to arrive. I looked at the horizon, the golden setting sun, and there the golden chariot in which the emperor is coming. I began to prepare my wish list, all that I'm going to ask from him. My day, my life, everything is going to change. And as the emperor comes, the chariot halts, the golden dust settles, the emperor gets down from the chariot, stretches out his hand and asks, what have you got to give me? What can you give me? Oh, what kingly jest is this? Are you mocking me? I am planning to ask you so many things and you come and ask me what I have got to give you. And so I opened my jhola, my bag, my rucksack. I had just some food that I had collected for the day. From there, I picked one corn, and from that corn, I picked one grain. Possibly that much I can let go from my dinner, right? I will not have to, I don't want to sleep hungry. So I'll give him one grain of corn. And I gave him one grain of corn because this is all I can give you. The emperor was happy. He said, thank you, accepted it, climbed the chariot, and off he was. Very strange incident. I thought he has come to give me, and he came and took from me. Night when I went and emptied my rucksack, my food had gotten stale and had rotten as well. But amidst all that, I saw one golden grain of corn. Ah, if only I had given my all to him. No, that's such a beautiful poem. He says that, oh my God, when we realize how God, when he says as Bangaru, he is a golden touch. He is the Parasmani. He is the alchemist. With a touch, he transmutes us into gold. Whatever little, this much tiny thing also we give Swami comes back to us manifold. Possibly not immediately. Possibly it doesn't happen even in a couple of months. And that's why we wonder, why am I doing this? Why can't I just be like anybody else? But no, it is only that which we offer to him that turns golden. Everything else rots. It's a waste. And this message was drilled in again and again, not just by Swami, by his teachers, by the lovely parents that he had given. That is the importance of satsang. Because as I said, the most important lesson I have learned at his lotus feet is that it is most important to be at his lotus feet. Nothing else matters. And to drive home this lesson and keep reminding us of this lesson day in and day out, we need satsang. We need satsang. And that is what actually made me also hold on during that vacation. Nothing is happening, but okay, Swami, I will come and sit in the mandir for 3 hours. I have decided to give up my vacation for your sake. Not just 3 hours in the evening, 3 hours in the morning as well. 6 hours I will sit. From a worldly perspective, it's a total waste of time sitting for 6 hours. I'm waiting for you, Swami. I'm waiting for you. Nothing else matters for me. Nothing else matters. I wish, I wish those days can come back where I can sit for hours waiting for you, knowing for sure that at the end of that wait, I'll be rewarded with a glimpse of your form. It's just that now you want me to have that glimpse within. It's very difficult for me. It's very difficult because I've gotten so used to your form. So I pray, I pine and I yearn. But all the experiences so far has shown me that it is not in vain. That will not go waste. Every teardrop shed for God, even when I feel sad and shed a tear, I feel happy within because I know that that teardrop won't go in vain. Swami's hands will come to catch each and every teardrop we shed for him because he values our tears. Nobody else, nothing else in this universe values our tears the way Swami values because he knows these are droplets of love and he thirsts only for love. So days passed. We had some nice picnics during the vacation. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. All satsang prabhav, when when I went into that Harpal Harakshan, I just got so overwhelmed listening to that perspective. And I don't know, I'm finding myself simply crying without reason so many times today. So please forgive that emotional outburst. Then one day, the 28th of October, something beautiful happened. During Darshan, Swami had called in a group from Andhra Pradesh, a group of devotees who had come. He called them in for an interview. And this was a group of about 125 men and 125 women. So they would not fit into the interview room. So Swami called them into the bhajan hall. And in the bhajan hall, the doors and windows were shut and it was a closed session. Swami spoke to them, interacted with them half an hour, 45 minutes. Something happened there. I mean, none of us knew. We were all waiting outside and hoping that that interview ends and Swami comes out so that he interacts with us. And just 3 more days left for the vacation to get over. Swami, something at least will be nice. As that session got over, the coordinator, possibly for that group, came walking out and he came straight to me. So currently where the Mahasamadhi is, Bhagwan's Sannidhi, the beautiful thing is Swami allowed us to sit there. We used to be seated there. So I was sitting in the second or third line there because vacation time, there were hardly anybody. And he came walking. There was a Ganesha idol there. And next to it, we were all seated. He came and I had my camera with me. It was a Nikon F90 film camera. He came to me and said, Sairam, can you come and take our photo? So I looked to the direction he was pointing. In the gent side of in Sai Kulwant Hall, there was a group of this 125 men who were gathering. And he wanted a group photo there. So I was wondering why he's asking me. So I didn't get up. He continued. He said, Swami told that you will come and take photo. And this got me even more confused. Swami told that I will come and take photo. Like, Swami doesn't even know me. Okay, fine, I'll take one photo. What is the big deal? I'll come. Shall I come now? I asked. He said, yeah, come now, please. So I got up and he walked fast towards his group. I began to walk towards where the group had assembled, with my camera in hand. As I proceeded there, suddenly a hush fell over the whole hall. Everybody became silent. And I was wondering what's happening. Like, why sound sudden? And suddenly I realized that presence, that electric current that comes with his presence, right? Swami's there. I turned around. Yes, Swami was walking and coming out. And I was stuck in the middle. I didn't know what to do. So I just plonked myself and sat down right wherever I was. Because I didn't want to be caught walking in the Kulwant Hall when Swami is coming there for darshan. He's coming out to grant a bonus darshan. Swami he walked past me and he walked straight towards this group of men. And then it struck me, oh, Swami is going to pose with them for a photograph. Oh, okay. That is the group photo he wanted. I was thinking they just want a group photo like with themselves, like how we take selfies right nowadays. And that is what I assumed. So that's why I was wondering, what a strange request. But now it all made sense. So I got up and as Swami posed with them, I took a photograph. And then again sat back because I didn't know whether Swami will reprimand me or scold me for walking in the hall during, during a time when Swami is also walking. So as Swami was walking, he crossed by me again, and he crossed by me, and then he asked me, "Are you a college boy?" I was in the school, but I thought Swami is going to scold me. I just said, "Yes, Swami. Come, come." Where I didn't know. And Swami is walking along the gent side, granting darshan. He told to come, so I got up with my camera around my neck. I started walking behind Swami. Wow, it was the first time, and I was just 2 feet behind him. His that fragrance, and Swami was even shorter than me physically. I felt, oh my God, this Lord who is my universe, who is my everything, so huge. Oh God, he's so sweet. I really felt this is what is Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. When I think of Swami, he envelops my entire heart, my entire universe, my entire world. He's so huge. He's the biggest thing in my life. And here he is so sweet and tiny. Wow. Yes, he is smaller than the smallest, cuter than the cutest, larger than the largest, grander than the grandest. And I was walking behind him, and Swami is walking ahead. I'm able to get the fragrance. I'm seeing his beautiful curly mop, so delicate like cotton, moving. A thrilling experience, first time for me, and I'm walking behind him. And suddenly Swami stopped, turned around, looked at me. It was almost as if he's surprised as to why are you following me? And I also in my face, no conversation happened, but this was just in my mind. I was saying, Swami, you told me to come and I'm coming. Swami said, go to ladies' side. Go to ladies' side. Is this a command? Is this a test? What is it? A joke? I didn't know. Swami just said, go to ladies' side. Turn and continue to give darshan. How will I go to ladies' side? I didn't know what to do. So I started walking away because Swami wanted me to go, but I didn't go to the ladies' side. I went and stood near the interview room door. That's exactly like a midway between the ladies and gents side. I stood near the interview room door, thinking, let me ask. When Swami comes, I'll ask him what did he mean. Go to ladies' side. Was it whatever? Swami finished darshan along the gent side, and Swami now entered the ladies' side. And from a distance, he turned and looked at me. I was at the interview room door. Swami said, "Go to ladies' side." Okay. Okay, Swami, you want me to go to ladies' side? So with the camera still hanging on my neck, and I walked to the ladies' side. And the moment I walked to the ladies' side, it again struck me. 125 ladies with an orange scarf were seated there as a group. Oh, so Swami is going to grant group photographs to the ladies as well. That's what I thought. So I went there, and now I don't know what to do. I just stood. Swami came so close by, and every time he's passing by me, it's such a beautiful experience. Such a beautiful experience. And Swami tells, go there, take a photo. Okay. The spot that he indicated, I went exactly to that spot. Put the camera to my face. Swami stood like that, smiled. Take. I took a photograph. Said, Swami, taken. You know what? I was so inexperienced, such a novice. I just took one photo. Usually, when Swami tells you to take a photo, you take 3, 4. Because in case 1 or 2 go bad, there is a backup, right? Nothing. I just took one photo. Click. Yes, Swami, I have taken. It was not even the digital era. It's not as if you can click and immediately have a look whether the photo has come well. It was a film camera, but I just took one. Then Swami said, come here, go to this angle. You take one more photo, Swami said. Swami was concerned about the backup. Swami said, come this side. Now, from that angle that Swami pointed, I was very close to the entire group. So in my lens, I was not able to get the entire field of view. I was not able to get the entire group. Now, how to capture? I'll have to cut out some ladies. Even as I was thinking this, see, these are the little things by which clearly show what a perfectionist Swami is. Swami already knew that problem. Swami said, hey, you'll have to go more back, otherwise you won't get the entire group. But how do I go more back? Right behind me, again, the entire ladies, there is one more section of ladies who are seated. Then Swami just turned, looked toward those ladies who were seated behind me. Make a path, Swami said. Oh, like how the Red Sea gave way to Moses, right? The oceans parted. Like that, they just parted Sairam, Sairam, and made one entire path. I could go right to the back. And from there, when I saw, yes, the whole group was coming. So I clicked the picture. I took a photograph. And then Swami said, good. And again, I followed. And Swami walked back. I followed Swami. When I reached near the interview room before Swami. Swami looked and said, what? Go back now, enough. You'll come with me inside or what? Oh, I just smiled and went back. Yeah, I just wish that I had the cheek to tell, yes, Swami, if given a choice, I'll come with you inside. I'll stay with you forever. I want only that. Anyway, I went back, sat, and my God, I was so happy. And I felt, Swami, wow. 9 days back, had I known that I'm getting this, I would not have felt bad about anything that came in my way. Because this joy that I'm getting, this proximity that I have got, so beautiful it is. I don't mind giving up even 30 days of vacation if I'm going to get this. See, that's the thing about sacrifice. When we sacrifice something that is dear to us, yeah, we feel the pinch, we miss it. But when we do it with the conviction and faith that I'm doing it for Swami, let me put it the other way. If we do it for Swami, automatically we'll have the conviction and faith that definitely what I'm going to get is better than this. Because Swami is the best. You can't get anything better than Swami in this whole universe. Swami is the best. Giving up anything for Swami is not a sacrifice. Because sacrifice is when you give up something of a greater value for something of a lesser value. You give up 1,000 rupees for 10 rupees, it's a sacrifice. When you give up 10 rupees for 1,000 rupees, it's not a sacrifice. It's a smart move. So when we give up anything for Swami's sake, it can never be a sacrifice. Because Swami is the most valuable, most beautiful, most sought after gift in this universe. Nothing else is more valuable. I went back to my place. I was feeling so happy, so thrilled. Now, if you ask me, did you sacrifice 9 days of vacation? No, it's not a sacrifice at all. What do you mean sacrifice? I got more than paid back in full. But the story didn't end there. That evening when I went back to the hostel, I was a hero in the hostel. My God, you're Swami's photographer. They said, whoa, my 2 horns came up. My chest puffed up. It's so strange, right? You get a pat on your back and your head swells up. That's the effect of ego. A gentle pat on your back and your head becomes fat. My head had blown. I was like, oh, yes, I am Swami's photographer. I have made a sacrifice for him and Swami has rewarded me, yes, and all that. A couple of teachers again called me and they said, get the negatives developed immediately. We should give Swami the photos tomorrow. I said, oh, is that also? Yes. They said, yes. We should print and give Swami photos. Not. I said, okay. Shall I give it in the studio here? Get the film developed, get one sample print and come as soon as possible. I was allowed to go out of the hostel, go outside, get this and come. And when I came back, the teachers, again, what amazing, how well they have been trained. They took the photographs, they counted the number of people in the photo and they said, go now order that many copies. They paid for it as well. And I said, oh, you're paying how money? Yes, don't worry. You just go ahead and do it. 125 to 150 copies, gents and ladies, neatly tied in a ribbon. And they told the negatives also keep it separately in case Swami asks. So I cut those negatives also, those 3 photographs, one on the gent side, 2 on the lady side, kept it in a cover, neatly wrapped everything. And I felt, wow, Swami, not just one chance, I'm going to get 2 chances. Because again, tomorrow as well, I'm going to sit in the front and I'll get a chance to talk to you. The next day, I was sitting there and like I felt, come and sit near me. I was thinking, everybody should sit near me because Swami is surely going to stop and talk to me. Such, again, overconfidence that comes because of the ego. Swami simply avoided me and walked on. And when he did that, instantaneously, fully deflated. The person who was sitting near me felt, brother, what you were going on saying that Swami will surely stop and talk to you. Why did you tell like that? I wanted to tell him, you forgot about yesterday. I was the hero. Nobody's ever the hero. Swami is a director who chooses somebody to be a hero for some time. We are just actors. We just have to do our roles properly. Today I might be the hero. Tomorrow I might be a zero. Either ways, I must accept it as his role that he has given and go ahead with it. No use of feeling depressed, no use of feeling excited. I was excited and elated and I felt like a hero. And now I was feeling like a zero depressed. Opposite, the other end. I went to the Nadir now. From the top of Mount Everest, I went to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Didn't know where to hide my face. So I went to the portico and there was a big pillar there near the interview room door. Opposite to it, there was a big pillar. I hid behind that pillar and sat because I thought I didn't want to expose myself. I didn't want to expose myself, so I sat there. And interviews went on. Swami completed the interviews, then Swami came out. And he came and started talking to the warden, who happened to be seated 3 people away from me. And as Swami was speaking there to the warden, I was thinking, should I show the photographs? No, no need. I'm such a useless fellow. I'm so egoistic. I'm such a sinner. I'm good for nothing. One opportunity Swami gives and I let it go like this. All these self-condemning thoughts were going on. That's also wrong. Just as pride is wrong, self-condemnation also is equally wrong. Because both are signs of ego. In both cases, I feel I am the body and I am separate from Swami. So whether I condemn myself or whether I praise myself, I'm giving scope for ego. As I was sitting there, Swami heard the movement of the rustling of the plastic cover. Swami looked at me and said, what is that? What is the chance that Swami will hear the rustling of a plastic cover and ask what is there in the plastic cover? Like, so many times plastic covers have rustled in his presence. But that's Swami. Everything is decided, every moment, what has to be done. It's perfect. It's a master plan. I now spoke like a mouse. I said, Swami, photos. Huh? Swami, yesterday, photos. Oh, I forgot. Swami made such a spontaneous gesture. Oh, show. I gave him the 2 bundles. Ladies, gents. Swami, oh, you didn't tell me, only come. Swami, follow me, Swami said. Again, I followed Swami. 2 days in a row, I'm following Swami. Thinking of it, I just pray, Swami, let me follow you, not just 2 days in a row, all the days of my life, let me follow you, Swami. Followed Swami. Swami took me outside again to the center of the portico, stood there and beckoned to that person. In the view of the entire Kulwant hall, that person came running. And Swami asked, what is this? I said, Swami, this is gents' photos. Swami gave it to me and said, this is gents' photos, okay? What is this? Swami, these are ladies' photos. Ladies' photos, okay? Swami gave it. Very happy he was. Then that person said, Swami, can I get negatives? Swami looked and said, negatives you have? I had been advised. So I pulled it out from my pocket and said, Swami, these are negatives. Swami said, good boy, good boy. Ah, what a joy to receive that from Swami. Swami said, good boy. Then I said, Swami, Pad Namaskar, can I touch your feet? Swami said, yes, please go. Today, when I look back, I don't think that Pad Namaskar was for printing the photos. That's the excuse. But I think it was because of a lesson learned that, remember, it's not as if you are the doer and God is a witness. You are the witness, God is the doer. Live in that Sakshi Bhava. Just witness what God does with your life. Just allow Him to act through you. Allow Him to do whatever He wills through you. Just be open to any experience, open to everything. Take it as His prasadam. And you will be at His feet. Because that's where I ended, taking Pad Namaskar. Beautiful memory that I still have of that incident. And then Swami said, yes, go back and sit. I went back and sat again, very happy. Immediately a boy next to me said, brother, you are very, very special for Swami. Nothing happened this time because I had learned my lesson. I said, Sai Ram, brother, it is all Swami's grace. Karuna Sagara Parama Kripalu Sai Bhakta Vatsala Tero Naam. It is only Swami's love that we have come to Him. It is only Swami's love that matters in our life. As I said, I thought I'll share a couple of experiences, but looks like I got so pulled into this incident, so happy in reminiscing it. The time on my system shows 9:27. So with that, I just want to pray to Swami. Swami, I don't know about the world, Swami, but I miss seeing you. So show yourself, Swami. Be it in my dream or anywhere, I would love to see this form somehow. I would love to feel you, Swami. Without feeling you, every day is a waste. Without thinking of you, every day is your waste. Every day is a waste. May every day, every moment be spent in contemplating about you, thinking of you. May every breath be for you. May every action be for you. May every word be for you. I'm grateful for this wonderful opportunity. As I said, the closest listener to my own talk is myself. And in preparing this talk, it has been a very beautiful journey. In delivering this talk, it has been a beautiful journey. And I'm grateful to Swami and his instruments. Brother Vinod, thank you. Jai Sai Ram.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I think we've heard you numerous times, both in our student days and outside of it. Rarely have we seen you so emotional when you deliver something. So I'm sure that there has been something remarkable which must have happened. But at the same time, I think each one of these experiences, right, of listening to you has been enthralling. I'm sure everybody in the audience also thoroughly enjoyed this, and we probably went through those moments of thrill and, like you said, right, embarrassment and the ups and downs of it really as you took us through it. I mean, I think very few people can narrate it the way you do. So I can assure you that this is the first of many talks we want to hear from you, because we're not going to let you go with one experience for sure. At the same time, so at the same time, I'm sure that there are probably a few people who might want to, ask one or two questions. So I think with your permission, we'll just, I think, allow anyone who wants to ask a question. Please go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask the question. Alternatively, you can type it into the chat screen, and we can read it out together. Arvind.
Good. I don't think there is any questions. So
Yeah. So I think one of them is any experience that you would like to share in Radio Sai with Dr. Venkatraman, right? Dr. GV. There's another one,
ah,
defining divine love.
define divine love. I don't know if I can define divine love. It's just that, see, I feel this is only divine love. Like years later, centuries later, it still touches your heart to the very core and makes you feel like giving up everything else in life for it. That kind of permanent feeling, like it's not just about Swami. Swami we have seen, but even if you think of Rama, Krishna, Ganesha, people give up life, people give up everything, though they have not seen. I think that is divine life, love. I don't know. I'll just go to Swami's own definition. Love is selflessness and self is lovelessness. So I think selflessness would be divine love. Experience with Professor GV. There are many, possibly straight away what comes to my mind is a recent one. That is because it had a big bearing in me actually when I had to leave Radio Sai. It was, it was not an easy decision to leave Radio Sai. For various reasons I had to leave, but it was not an easy decision to make. And I was praying to Swami, and other than coming in my dream, Swami gave all other indications. I wanted him to come in my dream and give a direct indication. That never happened. But one of the most powerful indication that happened was through Professor GV only. When I joined Radio Sai, Swami had told me, make Venkatraman happy, Swami will be happy. So that was the directive that I had. And every year on his birthday, not Swami's birthday, Venkatraman's birthday, we would go to wish him. And after wishing him, I would try to get some private time with him and tell him, sir, Swami told me to make you happy and he'll be happy. And sir would every time tell, that's because it's easy to make Swami happy. It's not easy to make me happy. You need to work harder. And this was the standard every year, year after year. And that's how it went for 13 years. Every year I wish him on his birthday and remind him of what Swami told me. And every year he says that he's not happy and I need to work harder. This year, October 6th, his birthday, 2020, not this year, last year, October 6th, 2020, I went, wished him, and after all that, I just said, sir, Swami had told me that I should make you happy, then Swami will be happy. He turned and said, hey, go tell your Swami that Venkatraman is very happy. And the moment he said that, I just had tears in my eyes that time, I broke down. And he felt uncomfortable. He said, hey, why are you crying? I said, sir, you have never told this to me before. He said, oh, is it? Now I'm very happy. And I felt that Swami telling me at that point in time, make Venkatraman happy, Swami will be happy. It made sense to me now. Because I used to wonder why Swami told that, because I never seemed to make Venkatraman happy at all. But I felt Swami knew a time will come, a point of time in my life where I will have to take a decision. And this was what he had planted in time already. You will know that your job is done when Venkatraman is happy, because Swami is happy with you, but I will be happy when Venkatraman is happy. And it is after that only I also told sir that I'm planning to leave and sought his blessings. And yeah, so that's the experience with Venkatraman sir. Next installment of Satya to Sai, yeah, you please pray to Swami, because if you want me and Prem to do it, I don't know how we'll do it. I don't know if I'll be allowed to join Prem there at Radio Sai to do it. If I'm allowed, I'll definitely do it. I don't know if Prem will be allowed to come out and join me to do it. Even I would love to do it. That was one thing that was holding me back, thinking that I won't be able to do Satya to Sai. But even there, I got an indication that possibly for the time being, this is the last episode that you'll be able to do. So don't stay back thinking you'll be able to do Satya to Sai. Things have changed. Things are changing even as we speak. So many things are happening. So I don't know about Satya to Sai, but please pray. Please keep me in your prayers. Dear brothers and sisters, for me, the greatest treasure or what I feel is worth is your prayers. So please keep me in your prayers so that I can, I don't know, I feel that is the greatest gift you can give me. Then what else? Yeah, Satya to Sai. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the love. Yeah, you have read all the blogs. Thank you. Any experience when I clicked a photo of him and he's looking straight into your eyes? Multiple times. Possibly I'll remember one little incident and right now where, in 2009 and 10, Swami would sit outside for bhajans, and after the bhajans, Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu, Jai Bolo Bhagwan Sathya Baba Ji ki Jai, Swami would raise his hand and he would raise his hand and turn like that, blessing everyone. So I would sit in the front and hope that when Swami comes towards me, I can take a photo so that he's looking directly at the camera and blessing. And I would raise up and click a photo and sit down when he comes towards me. So that day when I did that, Swami was moving like this, looking. But when I rose up, he didn't look at me. He looked elsewhere. He blessed. And I sat and I was looking at the photo. Oh, Swami, you're giving Abhayasta nicely, but you're not looking at the camera. And when I looked up at him, Swami was saying, I know Swami did this. I have got a video of that beautiful clip. So Swami didn't look at me directly when I shot the photo, but immediately after that, he kept looking at me only to look at my reaction. And I was not looking at him. See, this is what it is, you know. This is what I feel sometimes we miss. We are looking for Swami to respond to us in a manner, and he doesn't do that. And we are so lost in that we miss it when he actually responds in his own manner. Because when I wanted him to look, he didn't look. But after that, I was going on looking at my camera, not realizing that he's going on looking at me. And the moment I looked at him, Swami said, hey, correct, you're doing that. You're trying to get up and take or something like that. That's one sweet incident that I remember. Yeah. So that's it. I don't see any other question. Thank you for all your love. Thank you for all the good wishes. Keep me in your prayers, as I said. And yeah, more than we being in Prashanti Nilayam, I think what's important is Prashanti Nilayam stays in us. Because for various, like this pandemic came, we are just not able to go. What do you do? If we depend externally, if we depend on things external to achieve our connect with Swami, it can get snatched away from us. I think the message from Swami leaving his body or this pandemic, anything, is that we should become independent. We should develop that connect with Swami within our heart. So that even if I'm sitting in the middle of the Sahara desert, I should be able to say, Sahara do Bhagwan. You know, I don't know, I think that's a PJ. But anyway, I should be able to think of him there also and feel him in my heart. Yeah. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram. Yeah, brother S. Anand, you wanted to share something. Please go ahead.
Sai Ram, brother. Thanks. I just wanted to say that, like all the articles that you were written on the blog, the Hughes page, it came at a time when it was a very difficult time, I think, for everybody, who are very associated with Swami, right? And just just want to kind of thank you, deeply from the heart. I think you've done a fabulous service to Swami. Sai Ram.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to have been able to do that. And I pray that I can continue to do that. The videos that I'm making is just an extension. I just noticed that in the modern day, and more people are listening to and watching than the reading the blogs. When I check the viewership and readership, that's why I shifted to the videos. But yeah, I love writing, and those blogs will always remain there for public view. Very happy to listen to that. Feel very touched and blessed. Thank you.
And for those of you who would love to continue to, I think, read Brother Arvind's blog, we'd request him to, I think, share the link and we'll pass it on. And also there are some amazing videos that he's always been, making. Each one of them is a short snippet on a particular theme or a concept which is typically inspiring. Yeah, thank you to Brother Arvind for sharing that. The Blogspot one.
I'm just typing it in the both Blogspot and Hubpages too are there. And this is my email ID also, if anybody wants to write. And yeah, if you go to YouTube and search for Arvind Balasubramanya, the YouTube channel should show up. You can subscribe to that as well. Yeah, I've written everything.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And I think, as we've said, right, this is the first of a series of talks. You can be sure that we would love to listen to you for many more times, and we're going to come back to you with making sure that each of those gets.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's been a very beautiful thing preparing for it as well as delivering it. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. Usually we close this session with Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu and Om Shanti and Jai Guru. I think it would be appropriate if you lead the same. Please lead the same.
Sure. Om Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु, समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। ओम शांति 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 ही। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
Jai.
Thank you once again, Brother Arvind. Thank you to everyone for your valuable time.
Thanks,
Had a wonderful.
Brother Sairam. Thank you.
Thank you, Sairam. So I'm leaving now, Vinod. Sairam.
Thank you, Sairam.
Sai Ram. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Sai Ram. Sai Ram.
Sairam.